Hey everyone, welcome to this module on how to find niches. This is a really important topic for us. So there's going to be other modules along with this, expansion modules we're calling them, other examples and things to go over. But in this module, we're going to start covering the basics, go over some basic ideas on how to find a niche. We know how difficult it can be to come up with ideas on how to find a niche. We really want to start digging into that here. And so we're going to include a few ideas for you. And then again, there's some expansion modules on top of that. So let's flip over the screen and get right on into it. All right, guys, let's dig right into this module on how to find niches. And just as a quick heads up, we're going to have a lot more stuff on this. This is meant to be more of an overview of how to find niches. And as I said, let's dig right into it. So the first thing we want to talk about here is picking a narrow niche, but something that isn't too narrow. So most people to building a brand when they're getting started often pick niches that are just too wide. I'm going to go through some examples here and also talk about some things that I've discovered personally through my importing career. And we are using a couple examples here also from Steve Chu that he's talked about publicly from My Wife Quit Her Job. If you've never checked that out, highly recommend checking out My Wife Quit Her Job. He's got a lot of really good information over there. And also Andrew Darian from E-Commerce Fuel. If you haven't checked that out, ecommercefuel.com as well. So let's talk about wedding products being just a little bit too wide. You don't want a brand that caters to wedding products in general. There's too many things you could be doing, tablecloths and handkerchiefs, as we said here, thank you notes or invitations, wedding dresses. It's just too broad. And too narrow would be something like a pink wedding handkerchief, just only selling pink handkerchiefs. But something that might be just right would be special event linens, where you're focusing on that niche of just the linens. Uh, Going into fishing products or that niche, fishing products in general, just too wide. You have fishing poles and lures and boats and motors and all kinds of things, clothing and stuff like that that could be worn for fishing. But something that might be too narrow would be salmon flashers, where you're only just having that one particular thing just for fishing salmon. But something might be just right. And again, example here being trolling motors, something Andrew Darian's talked a lot about, really good case studies. That worked really well for him, just focusing on that little niche. And then something I can relate to, medical products, a little bit too broad. You don't necessarily want to be doing be all everything to everybody in the medical world. Something that might be too narrow would be just doing nothing but hot water bottles, but something that we've done really well with is hot and cold packs, hot and cold therapy packs. That's been a good niche for us. Boating products, something Dave has done. He was into selling anchors and stuff like that, but boating products in general is just a little bit too wide. Having something like Bruce anchors are just going to be too narrow. Something that might be just right would be anchoring and docking products, which is what Dave focused on. So again, try not to get too narrow. Try not to be too wide. Have something that is kind of your narrow lane that you can focus on. And we'll get more into that here as we go through these other slides. So the things that we find that are good qualities of a niche is the ability to ultimately develop 25 to 50 products within that niche. It seems to be a good amount of products to be developing. You can use one manufacturer to do that a lot of times, or just a couple manufacturers, and really build out a great brand around that. And what I found is that was perfect for our first brand. It was a really good spot to be in. Now we're looking at brands that have more depth because we have more experience and we want to be in that spot. But I think as you're developing your first brand and you're going through this course, you want to be focusing on niches that have somewhere probably in that 25 to 50 products. That's more than enough to keep you busy for the first couple of years and become a really good expert in that niche. You want to be able to easily define an audience, and ideally, you want it to be a direct audience in Facebook. This is something that was a miss for us with hot and cold packs. I would not recommend doing that in the future just because of that. But boating, for instance, is perfect. Wedding is really good because people will have an interest in getting married or recently engaged. Something that like coloring, there's a direct audience. Baby stuff, there's direct audiences. Anything that you can get a direct audience on Facebook is really important. You want something that people are really passionate about. All these things we kind of talked about again, going back and looking through that list we were just going over. People are very passionate about their wedding. They're very passionate about boating, not so passionate about hot and cold therapy packs. So I would try to find something that they're probably passionate about over not being passionate. You want to try to find a mature industry with a few brands already selling B2C, business to consumer. You don't want to invent something on Amazon. Selling on Amazon or just selling in general for e-commerce, I think, is bad. So you want to, have something that's got some maturity to it, that's got some history and things you can look to do yourself. Also, a niche that you're knowledgeable in or willing to become knowledgeable in is very important. The example that I use all the time here is ballet shoes. I had an opportunity to buy balletshoes.com at one point, and I was very interested in it. It was a very good deal. But the reality was that I had no interest in that. It was something I couldn't even try to have an interest in if I wanted to. Unlike coloring, where it's not something I really had an interest in, but I was able to get my head around and be passionate about it nonetheless. So you got to definitely be willing to dig fully into it and be able to relate to your customers and do it. Another thing is you want to make sure that it's not a short-lived fad. This is something that we worried about as we got into coloring, but we deemed that the niche itself wasn't really a fad, even if the coloring book part was. But we thought that pencils and markers and stuff would have a long-term viability. So making sure that it's not a fad is really important in our opinion. And these are qualities to look for. It's hard to check off everything here. So you might give or take a little bit on some of this, but we try to nail as many of these as possible. All right, so some ideas and strategies for brainstorming on how to find a niche. I mean, you can actually just go up and down aisles at a department store. You'd be surprised at how inspiring this can be. Go to a Home Depot or a Walmart, and then look down the aisle, but you don't want to be doing a niche on the entire aisle. You want to focus in on one part of that. Again, just trying to look at the sign here. Maybe you're selling fruit drinks or whatever it might be, or on the other side over here on the right, maybe something that's tea. You're only selling tea bags or organic teas or something like that, and maybe accessories. That would be niching into something. But beverages would be just way too wide. So you don't want to be trying to sell the whole aisle, but just a part of that aisle. Another really good thing is the fifth level worksheet. We have this as a part of our course. Amazon has over 13,000 categories that are actually very neatly itemized for you. And our recommendation is to be in this fifth level or sixth level of this worksheet. And there's a whole nother video about this that we have in the course as well. But the first level here might be home and garden and pets. That's just way too broad to have a company that sells into all that. And then you can get into one more level deeper here, furniture and decor. That's still pretty deep. Home decor is still deep. Fireplace and accessories is deep, but like doing fireplace accessories makes a lot of sense. Or fish oil supplements or something like that. You get into something that's a achievable niche, something that you can become an expert in, source from few factories, get a name for yourself, get people that are going to buy multiple products from you in that same niche. It's very important. All right, so a couple more things here. You can go to something like a big website and go to a dominant retailer like a Michaels as a for instance, or Walmart or some other retailer. It doesn't have to just be Amazon, but you can go through and shop their categories. Look at something like baking and party supplies, and look over if they have baking supplies, and you get some ideas of things that they're doing there. So party supplies is actually a really big business. I know a couple of people that are specifically into just this niche, party supplies. So there's plenty of ways to look at something like a Michaels or other retailers when you're having a hard time finding ideas. Another thing that I use is my buddy Greg Mercer's product Jungle Scout. It's a really great product for looking through niches. It does require a paid subscription. We'll throw a link to that in here as well, and another video. But you can go through and search through the individual categories here and start trying to find the niche or products that you're looking for. If you know that you want to be in something like arts and crafts, you would check off that box there and then start filtering based on that, and it would start giving you products and niche ideas. If you're having a hard time coming up with ideas, this is definitely another good way to do that. So that is the end of this module. Hope you guys found this helpful. We'll be back with another one shortly. And until then, happy selling and talk to you then.